GM, welcome to Morning Markets. It is Monday, the 13th of October. So, what have we seen in the markets since the CME open on Sunday? Well, Bitcoin consolidated and is now at risk of a low time frame breakdown below the consolidation. Ethereum, the same. That's as expected because crypto market is correlated. Stocks, they initially gapped up on the CME open, consolidated, and are now at the lows of that consolidation. So toying with the idea of a potential breakdown pre-New York session, but holding up within the range for now. Gold is the asset that has trended. So gold on the CME open has marked up to a new all-time high again. No surprise here. Trump said he's going to continue going forward with his 100% tariff on China on November the 1st. Whether it happens or not, who knows? But that is bad for the US stock market and therefore bad for the dollar. And if the dollar's weak, well, the next asset that is being seen this cycle as your risk off asset has been gold. And guess who's been accumulating gold? Of course, China. So interesting dynamics to see how this plays out and could be the catalyst for a further risk off move. There's always a headline, a catalyst, but as you guys know by now, if you're watching my channel, price tells you first. The narrative and news always comes in after. So let's dive into the price levels now. So Bitcoin low time frame, finding resistance at the H4, 12 and 21 EMA bands after a nice push up on Sunday, but we saw big wicks coming in, momentum slowing. That was the sign that potentially coming into a low time frame reversal here. So putting some levels on the chart now, we got the H4 fair value gap. That's where we found resistance at so far. Above Sunday's high, I expect a quick move to the next H4 fair value gap at 117.2K. But so far we found resistance there, and now we really have some key levels since we're rejecting those H4, 12 and 21 bands. Look at your lower time frames. They build into your higher time frames, and we're losing the weekly open and potentially now the Q4 open here on the 1 hour chart. Of course, wait for the candle closes, but trading below the Q4 open is the ultimate sign of momentum being over here in this push up and bears become back in control. Between the Q4 open and Sunday high, expect chop. There's no clear direction. We're trading within the fair value gap. Below the Q4 open, expect downside. Above the Sunday high, expect a quick move to, as I said, the H4 fair value gap. So toying with the idea of losing the Q4 open on low time frames here, and that can set up a move to fill in some of these gaps again. And from there, you're really just looking for, can we form a reversal? If we do break down, some sort of double bottom perhaps. And if that confirms, then we can look for longs to trade it higher. Do we instead form some sort of higher low, so failure to return pattern? Again, we can look for longs if that confirms. Or do we need to even go for a sweep of some of these lower levels? So of course the wick goes to many different prices on different exchanges. On futures, it goes to around 101, 102. On spot, like Coinbase, it goes to around 106, 107. So keep an eye on your Coinbase low. That's the one I'd be using in terms of a sweep. And then again, if we reclaim these levels, looking for potential longs. Until then, you just need to wait for that higher time frame reversal signal, because the idea of a V reversal seems to have been invalidated this morning, losing that weekly open. Now, of course, if we can hold this Q4 open, then maybe it is still on the cards. Who knows? But at the moment, seems to be invalidating the idea of an immediate reversal. Therefore, that's why I'm saying look for one of your high time frame bottom signals if we lose that Q4 open, and then just play it from there, because of course you're always still at risk of, if we lose the Q4 open, we are just going to go into the scenario where you chop, bounce, and then actually have some momentum lower. And of course it's that range low. That's the key level that we're looking at on the daily chart. So quick view of the daily. This is the chart I've been sharing with you guys for weeks now. primary support has been that high time frame support resistance level over here. That's where we bounced from. So far, it's been a classic bounce at range low as expected. You could ignore this wick as obviously we know that was mainly due to liquidity being pulled from the books and people not being able to access exchanges. That's why it went so deep. Therefore, when you ignore that wick and you just go to something like the line chart over here, you can see that we are currently just bouncing at the range low, which is so far so good until you break, of course, the low. So that's why I say go back to these levels. Below the range low, 107.2K, likely momentum downwards continues. But if we can form a bottom, whether it's from here or whether it's actually going to the range low and then reclaiming the high time frame SR, that's what sets up a potential long through the range. And of course, we wait for confirmation because, as I said, you're at risk of just a bleed lower. So charts look decent from the perspective of range trading on Bitcoin. At the moment, if we do lose the Q4 open, I'll be looking for potential low time frame shorts to play some of this momentum downwards if we do start losing those key levels. But as I said, for now, while we're in between the Q4 open and the Sunday high, expect chop and expect directionless price action. Don't get caught up in this range, longing and shorting, wait for a clean break of Sunday's high now, or a clean break of the Q4 open, and then watch for what happens when we move to the lows. Is it support or do we lose the levels? So that's the real update for Bitcoin. When we look at the stock market, what are we seeing? Well, we closed below the daily market structure. So this is the futures. Of course, when you look at something like the SPY, this is the spot market for stocks. This still needs to open on the New York session. It closed right at the lows, so going to be very interesting to see, does this continue down? If so, that is showing there is huge leverage to unwind because everyone's expecting this chart to go down on the New York Open. Therefore, if everyone's expecting something and it still happens, that shows there's high leverage in the market. Whereas if we actually continue the bounce, as we're seeing on the futures, which is of course open right now, doesn't open on the New York session, it is extended, you could maybe see some sort of bounce continuation that we've so far had over here. So look to lower time frames. We bounced, of course, from my support zone over here to the T. That's produced a nice reaction on stocks. Gapped up when we look at the 1 hour right into this impulse candle. So high volume, large price movement candle over here. That's where we found resistance. And now we are potentially reversing here. And there's a big CME gap over here, which we could potentially be looking to fill. And then from there, I'd say, are we going to find, again, support here, form some sort of failure to return pattern? That would be bullish for risk on and show that all of this drama over China was for nothing. And perhaps this trade then gets reverted and we make our way back to where the sell-off began. That would be your best case scenario. Now, worst case scenario is we trade through the gap and just keep going to new lows. And you see, as I said, that SPY chart just actually continue lower and lower. That's going to denote a real deleveraging in the stock market. And when you're looking at the stock market, you're really looking at what's going on in AI. So Nvidia potentially closing below this previous all-time high here, which would be a false breakout and a bearish signal. Now, of course, we have already closed below it, but what I'm saying is when it opens, you now need to see, do we continue down lower and confirm this false breakout? Because currently pre-market trading above it. So that would be all good from that perspective. And we're retracing this breakdown candle so far from where we're opening at. But again, if session decides to fall back below that daily close, then you're toying with a further flush in the US stock market. And I think it is going to be catalyzed by the headlines and what's going on with the tariffs around China. Now, of course, you don't need to wait for the headline to make your decisions. You look at the price and you say, is it falling below the daily close? Are we getting that false breakout confirmed? Okay. Headlines will probably then come in here, but the signs in the chart will be over here. That's how you position. So interesting to see how that plays out. Now gold, of course, chatting to new all-time highs. What a chart. Completely said no to any breakdown below 4K, and it's now above at new all-time highs. So again, looking at gold, what did we have? Well, it was actually the 12-hour band, so they said has been key support zone. So I know a few of you guys asked me, how do I look for support on gold to play the trend following trade? There you go. Produced a new high. Bounce from the bands. Now you can look to take profit on any longs that you caught over here. Again, it's simple. In trend following assets, you follow the trend. Bitcoin, ETH, crypto, they've not been trending. So we haven't been able to follow the trend like this. Instead, you've been playing a trade through the range. The bands aren't being respected. This is mean reversion, whereas something like gold is a trending asset. So if you're a trend following trader, that's been amazing for you, just looking at these bands to see what's finding support. And until Bitcoin can actually break out, form some sort of bottom, as I said, find then some sort of trend support that actually is respected. Until then, expect this chart to continue mean reverting with a bias for downside if we do start breaking the high time frame SR and range low on a candle close basis. Simple. If the asset's not trending, don't trade it like it is trending. Something like gold is trending, so look at the beautiful setups that you get. Now looking at the wider crypto market, got Bitcoin, ETH, total 3, and the others chart. So everything excluding Bitcoin and ETH here, and everything outside the top 10 here. You've got some key levels. So this is, of course, the key high time frame SR level I've been sharing with you guys for weeks. That's where Bitcoin's bouncing from. So above there, bulls do have a chance of holding this range. Whatever probability you want to give it, there is still some probability to holding it, and potentially this forms a wider consolidation. Once we get below it, that invalidates that and probably opens up some high time frame flushes. On Ethereum, it's the same. You've got your high time frame support resistance level here, which is held so many times. Needs to continue holding, otherwise you toy with that false breakout idea. So below there, bears in control. Above there, potential to form a consolidation here. Total free, you've really got this February 3rd liquidation day level that I've been sharing. Resistance here, briefly support here. Need to remain above that. So look at your altcoins relative to this. Are they above their February 3rd liquidation level? You look at something, let's say like SUI, for example, this is how you would do it live. You'd go, okay, February 3rd liquidation levels here on SUI. We're below it. So SUI is not strong relative to the altcoin market. It's as simple as that, because the index is showing that the majority of altcoins on average are above that level. So that's your key level to hold on any altcoin. If you lose it, then again, bears start getting in control. And on the others chart, outside the top 10, we're seeing real weakness in the low caps. We are below that February 3rd level. So really got to play it. My trade of the weeks I laid out are here. So make sure, if you haven't checked out trade of the week, to keep an eye on it. We've got red path potentially playing out here. Green path is for a squeeze, where I'd be looking for shorts. Red path, looking for momentum shorts if we break the high time frame SR. But if we get the orange path and start reclaiming levels, forming one of your bottoming patterns, as I said today, really just looking for where can we form a higher low, or sweep, or even a sweep of some of those lower Coinbase lows. Doesn't matter which. If we confirm that, then I'll be looking for longs. If we don't, then chart's going to break down. Simple as that. Make sure you do check out this weekly outlook video. It's an absolute banger. It is 56 minutes long. Put it on 1.5x speed, because it's not every day that I break down my full high time frame market update on a crash like last week. I also break down my full portfolio update, the psychology behind how I sold what is so far the top of the bull market at 121K. I went into 100% cash in August. Also give a full update on my plan for this cycle and my plan moving forward to kill the rest of this cycle and the next, and how I'm really protecting my gains. It's an absolute must watch. If you enjoy it, of course, drop a subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment on this video. Let me know. You guys are the best. That's it, 250. Again, I'm screenshotting everyone who's subscribing and supporting me now because I think in the future, we're going to be killing it and I want to know all of the OGs. So see you guys in the next one.